What what's up, y'all? Me Big Dude. I'm back with a new video. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different this time. It's gonna be solely book reading. Reading from the solely. The name of the story called the Solely Sheep by James Riley. Chapter Chapter 1. Old Wind wanted to scream at the horror before him, but the sound wouldn't come, and the nightmare only continued, forcing Owen to ask himself, deep down, one question: can anyone tell me what 34923 is? Miss Barberry stood at the board at the foot of Owen's classroom, his arms folded, waiting for a hand to raise. No, not that question. The real question was this: was there anything in the world that could possibly be more boring than faster? Owens frowned as Mr. Barberry gave up on volunteering and just pick someone, Maury. 3/4 time to serve. Being locked in a room with no windows or doors, without anything to do, while wearing a blindfold and being forced to name various types of trees. That'd be pretty boring, but not fashion boring. One half, Mark answered, and Miss Barberry nodded. Maybe if someone gave you enough soda to keep you awake for hours, then we burn to a building instruction to you in another language. Except, what if you accidentally try to learn that foreign language without realizing it? That almost be considered worse it to some people. So that would insanity out. Owens, Miss Barberry said. How about you? One show times two shows. 2 nights, Owens said, Becky and Charleston. That's right, Miss Barberry said, and turned back to the board while Owens let his mind wander again. Maybe being stuck homesick and too feverish to think of or do anything except watch TV, and the only sound that came in was an infomercial for other infomercials. That would be pretty boring. One show times one show, Miss Barber asked Gabrielle. 1 night, Gabrielle answered, his eyes gazed over. No, persistence still won by a lot. If only the bell would ring early from some freak assistant, sure. Sure, it had never happened before, but Owens was nothing if not a mystery, and that was something he was pretty proud of, since it wasn't easy to be unmisted in the face of all these math problems. How about 4/5 times 1/8? Mr. Barberry asked. Bethany, want to make this one? There was no answer. So Mr. Barberry turned around. Bethany. Owen threw a look over his shoulder and saw Bethany hunched down behind her math book, her head not even visible. She wasn't actually sleeping, was she? That'd be brave, dumb, but brave. Either way, at least something was happening, and that meant class got just a fraction less boring. Owen closed his smile with his hand. That's hard, Bethany. Miss Barbell shouted. Bethany jerked back in her chair, and her mouth book tumbled forward, revealing something else behind it. Charlie in the chocolate fashion. Uh-huh. Oh. Miss Barberry just stared at Bethany for a second as she looked around, a mix of confusion and fear on her face. Owen whined, waiting for Miss Barberry to start yelling, but fortunately, the bell rang right at that moment, releasing them for lunch. Okay, go, Miss Barberry said. Everyone but you, Bethany. The girl nodded, her long, bronze-colored hair falling forward over her face. Owen stood and sympathetically looked back at her, then noticed something real. Was that chocolate on her chin? But then the other students blocked his view, and he struggled, not willing to chance getting yelled at too. Besides, lunch meant at least he had a half a hour no fasting. After waiting in a lunch line, I had to remember to add to his list of the most boring things ever. Owens carried his tray of pizza and milk around the cafeteria looking for a seat. He considered one table with some boys when he crashed, but they ignored him as he walked over, so he kept going, pretending he always meant to sit by himself. That right here, he bought a book. Anyway, sitting by himself wasn't exactly new. Owens had read cute Gnomon foot and the end of everything twice now, but the seventh book in the series will come out next week, so it couldn't hurt to catch up. It'd been hard enough getting a copy out of the library anyway. The pile the fact that his mother worked there. This was a book that ended with Dr. Vuttian surprise attacking the American teacher. After all, Owen Polanski knew at least 5 people who had cried at the idea that the American might die, and 10 people who called the series a Harry Potter ripoff, which it sort of was. But everyone still loves it, as Owen started to read the last chapter where Dr. Bertina broke into the magazine upside down tower. He saw Bethany chomp into the cafeteria out of the corner of his eyes. He plopped down at a table on the other side of the room, then pulled out her book and looked around suspiciously. Then she dropped her head, ate something, and sat back up, glancing around again. What was he was doing, eating behind the book? Did he even have food? Was he? Whoops! What he was now was set at him. Owen immediately looked everywhere but at Bethany. But it was too late. She jammed her book closed, threw him a dirty look, then exited captivity with an ignorant huff. Owen sighed and dropped his own book onto the table. They were probably feeling embarrassed after getting yelled at and didn't want anyone staring at her, which meant his up made seem what awesome. He guiltily pushed Owen up out of his seat and after Bethany to apologize or make a joke. Only by the time he got to the hallway, there was no Bethany. In fact, the entire hallway was completely empty except for the copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Bethany had just been reading, which now lay on the floor just beneath a locker. Not only had she just left a book on the floor, but was Owens could tell even from a distance that it come from his mom's library. That wasn't even her book, and it was the chocolate stains on it. That was not cool. What was Bethany thinking? Who checked out a book and got chocolate all over it? Even if it fit the story. Other people wanted to read these books too, and didn't want to have food stains on their copy. Shaking his head, Owen grabbed the book and dropped it into his bag, then walked back into the cafeteria to get back to the important things like Doctor avoiding attack on the magazine. Unfortunately, the bell decided to ring, then cool, but at best, Owen sighed, threw away his garbage, and trotted back to another few hours of mind normally spent learning. A festering, mostly fully day ended, and Owen flew out the front door like he was launched from a cannon. It felt so good to be out that he walked almost quickly to his mother's library, but she worked almost every night at Yulee. Owens would go by and help out where he could, mostly because he made him, but partly because it was just fun being around all the books. He said hi to his mom, who was running around with too much to do, then took his Yulee spot at the front desk, where he checked people's books out for 2 hours. This job could be either interesting seeing what people were reading, embarrassing seeing what people were reading, or boring seeing what people were reading. Usually it managed to cover at least 2 of the 3 ever-through minutes, and tonight was no different. When things finally cooled down, Owen sighed and pulled out his homework, knowing that his mother, no matter how busy she was, would know she was busy making him do it anyway. Only when he went to pull out his math book, there was Bethany copy of Charlie and Chocolate Factory in his bag. Whoops, he sort of forgot all about that. He'll pick it up, meaning to give it back to Bethany and get at her jug mentally for the chocolate shame. But now that he thought about it, had she even been silenced after lunch? He couldn't remember her being there or in any other class that afternoon. Maybe she'll gone home sick after eating too much chocolate and Yuli's and using a library book as a napkin. Owen struggled and checked the book back to the library. She knew where to find it if she wanted it again. His mother called him, putting the book on a pile that was supposed to go back out onto the shelf, and gave him a look. He sighed and stood up, know where this would go. Those all go in the killing session, she said. I'm locking up, but I have food things to take care of in the office after that, so finish your homework when you're done. Oh, of course. Owen picked up a pile of books about half as tall as he was, and walked them slowly back to the killing session. As usually it was a mess, like a hurricane had popped into a wheel in a nuclear bomb. Right around the reading book, Owen sighed and dug in, pulling fruit interesting books aside as he noticed them. That was the only good part about cleaning up his sometimes find things that looked like a good read. 10 minutes later, the killing session was at least cleaner, with random piles stacked on top of old full shelves. Owen looked sadly at the stack of books. He'll carry her to put back, then sigh again and pick up Sergeant Stockford fast, knowing there'll be no room for it. But then, as he found a D session for the wanted doll, something will happen. His hand jumped. He looked down at his hand and the book in it. Thinking his up, imagining the George. The book in his hand jumped again. God, he said, dropping the book it smashed before hard, and just sat there for a moment. Then jumped a third time. What was happening? Owen back up as he covered and a bunch of pages flew open all by themselves. Was the book haunted? Was it entirely Library's home? Was it okay to find out also even while being shelled? And then the last thing in the world that Owen ever happened. 5 chocolate-covered fingers pushed right out of the center of the book, grabbed the edge and began to pull themselves out. End of chapter 1. Thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoy chapter 2. Chapter 2 will be up the next day. Bye, y'all.